Mark, I've had another thought. I know exactly what happened. CEO sat there one day and going,
yeah,
what can we do to reinvigorate this shoe company?
Mm-hmm.
And then ChatGPT turns around and says, start making GPUs. He's like, are you sure? It's like, yeah, start making GPUs. It's like, okay, then write me a business plan for that. And then that is it. This is how this has happened.
The AI fix a digital zoo. Smart machines, what will they do? Flies to Mars or bake a bad cake? World domination, a silly mistake.
Hello and welcome to episode 99 of the AI Fix. 99! Your weekly dive headfirst into the bizarre and sometimes mind-boggling world of artificial intelligence. My name is Mark Stockley and today I'm delighted that the wonderful Lianne Potter is here again. Hi Lianne, how are you? What's new with you?
Hey up, how's it going? Everything is new with me, new and exciting, but not as exciting as episode 99. You could have waited though and got me for episode 100. I feel so snubbed. But yeah, it's great to be back. Great to be back again.
So you have got a fantastic new job title, which is so long that I haven't been able to remember what it is. So I'm going to ask you to repeat it for our listeners.
I mean, I wish business cards were back in fashion again so I could carry one around just so I could look at it occasionally. So I totally sympathise with you there. So it's a Chief AI Security and Ethics Officer for North Star Intelligence, which is an AI consultancy.
That sounds a little bit like you're doing everything.
Well, everything to do with AI security and ethics. So my background is cybersecurity, sort of pivoted into the AI space. And as we've discussed on the previous episodes, which I'm sure you'll link because people will want more. They'll want more after this of Lianne Potter.
And you've got a bunch of other podcasts as well, haven't you? But we'll name check those at the very end and they can go and check you out on those.
Exactly. You need to have something at the end for people to stay for. And those two podcasts are pretty good.
You were saying just before we started the show that you were working on an incel detector.
Yeah. So part of my job is AI safety and ethics.
Yeah.
And I get a lot of free rein in my job to contribute to the AI safety space for the world, for humanity. I'm a do-gooder at heart. I'm building an incel detector. So I've built a hate speech and toxicity detector before, basically. But I thought, okay, what can I do to really expand on this? And as we all know, with Louis Theroux, waving the flag there, talking about the manosphere and things like that, we are having a bit of an incel problem.
So incel is involuntary celibate, isn't it?
Yeah, and what I think about it is just have a wash, They act like there's a real mystery to attracting ladies. And we'll go into more about that later with my topic that I want to discuss on today's show.
Okay, so what are you discussing on today's show?
Well, I'm going to be discussing AI brothels and AI companions. And incels are quite into both of those things, and we'll go into more about why. But yeah.
Anyway, more on that later. I'm going to be talking about an AI that thinks it's 1930. But before we do that, we will have some news.
Allbirds, the eco-sneaker company, would now like to sell you GPUs.
The NSA is using Anthropic's too dangerous AI.
Musk takes a stand against OpenAI.
Amazon will now read its reviews to you out loud, like a friend. So Lianne, have you ever fancied buying a pair of carbon-neutral sneakers and then accidentally rented a graphics card instead?
I can honestly say that's not happened. I don't think I've even imagined those in a sentence together. Okay.
Well, neither could I until now. Because Allbirds, the famously eco-friendly shoe company that built its entire brand around the slogan "Lower your carbon footprint," has just announced that it's leaving the shoe business and rebranding as Newbird AI. A company rebranding itself with the word AI at the end. Who's ever thought of that before?
Have you ever tried leaving the shoe company before? It's a bit like The Godfather, they pull me back in.
Sorry, have you got some inside track on the shoe business there? Have you had trouble leaving a shoe company before?
You never really leave the shoe business.
Anyway, the footwear startup has become a GPU cloud provider. So, here's what happened. Allbirds was valued at $4 billion at IPO in 2021. And in March, it sold its entire shoe business and the Allbirds brand for $39 million. And on the 15th of April, it announced a $50 million convertible financing facility to pivot the gutted shell of the company into a fully integrated GPU as a service and AI native cloud solutions provider. It's also asking shareholders to approve removing references to environmental conservation from its charter, because I guess it just doesn't care about that anymore if it's in the GPU business. The market response was exuberant. The stock surged about 600% in a single day, jumping from under $3 to $23. And then Bloomberg and CNBC published their analysis, and the next day it fell 35%. So, Lianne, what's going on here?
I don't get it. So, shoes, GPUs, wool, are we allowed to just do anything we want nowadays?
Yes, you can, yes. I mean, to be fair, I think that's a good thing, though. I mean...
Capitalism gone mad. That's what this is.
I mean, I'm glad that there isn't some sort of police or legal force saying, well, you're not allowed to be a GPU as a service and AI native cloud solutions provider now because you used to be a shoe company. Like, I think it's okay that we're just here going, no, well, that's a bit weird.
Do you know what I reckon it was? They had a hackathon. You ever done a hackathon at work? They're really nice and things like that, but I reckon it was just like a free-reign hackathon, and they got their engineers together and they were like, let's make our shoes even better. And they were like, no, let's make GPUs. And I'm like, are you sure this is what you want to spend your hackathon day doing? It's like, yeah, I want to make GPUs.
I think you're right. I reckon some technical member of staff came into the hackathon and they've been using Claude at home, and they were like, oh, I never get to do this at work because I work on shoes.
Yes.
And they came in and they just did their thing, and the CEO was so blown away by how clever this was. They were like, we're going to pivot. We're GPU as a service and AI native cloud solutions provider from now on.
Mark, I've had another thought. I know exactly what happened. You mentioned the CEO. CEO sat there one day and going, what can we do to reinvigorate this shoe company? Mm-hmm. And then ChatGPT turns around and says, start making GPUs. It's like, are you sure? It's like, yeah, start making GPUs. It's like, okay, then write me a business plan for that. And then that is it. This is how this has happened.
So there is a new model from Anthropic called Mythos. And apparently when they were testing it, it turned out to be so unbelievably dangerously good at finding computer security vulnerabilities that Anthropic has decided it's not going to release it publicly. So they've restricted access to a handful of organizations like the big companies you've heard of, like Amazon and Cloudflare, so that they've got an opportunity to fix critical infrastructure before this thing is released, because it poses such a danger.
Oh, that has marketing speak all over it. But the marketing department were like, can we really emphasize it's a big danger? And
really bad.
Oh, we really want you to have this, but you can't have it. Ooh.
There are two sides to this, because apparently OpenAI did exactly the same thing with GPT-2. They said, this is too dangerous, it's too mind-blowing. We're not even sure we can release this. So there is precedent for AI companies being a little bit, edgy with the marketing in this way. But I just don't see Amazon and Cloudflare and the other organizations buying into that marketing hype. The British AI Security Institute looked at this and they said that its ability to conduct end-to-end cyber attacks was unprecedented. Oh, yeah.
Something to take seriously. But my big question is, yes, we can find all these 0 days and vulnerabilities, but, we struggle to fix what comes out in drips and drabs, let alone, hundreds of thousands of them.
Yes, it's not like there isn't a problem already, yes.
So who's going to fix all this when everyone in tech's been laid off?
Well, we'll get the AI to do it. Anyway, now TechCrunch is reporting that one of the organizations that is quietly using Mythos Preview is the National Security Agency. They are reportedly using it to scan environments for exploitable vulnerabilities.
It makes a nice change for them instead of introducing 0 days into the system. Thanks, NSA, with your deep blues.
Anyway, this is awkward because the Pentagon recently labelled Anthropic a supply chain risk and effectively banned them. So the official position is too dangerous for the public, banned by the Pentagon, and fined for the NSA. Anyway, are you happy with the NSA having access to this?
As I say, they've not got the greatest of track records, but if they feel like it's going to be in their safe and capable hands, yeah, go at it. But as I say, if the only kind of plus of this is that maybe it will encourage more investment into cybersecurity because this is around. I've already seen that in some organizations, sort of reaching out and sort of saying, hey, how seriously should we take this, Lianne? And it's like, well, it all depends on your capacity to address the issues that they find. Because the problem is, as soon as any kind of vulnerability gets released out into the wild, then every hacker and the dog are trying to utilize that. The only kind of plus thing I can see about it is, one, yes, awareness is always good, but hopefully it will encourage more organizations to invest in brilliant cybersecurity staff.
Yes, I don't think anything moves the needle at all until you get breached, at which point the needle flies to the other end of the dial.
You know, I always say there's nothing quite like a good breach for your cybersecurity budget.
Anyway, Lianne, if $1 billion lawsuit is the rich man's version of a divorce, then Elon Musk and Sam Altman are currently in court fighting over custody of the dog. This week, in a federal courtroom in Oakland, California, Elon Musk took to the stand in his own trial against OpenAI, the company he co-founded, remember? So under questioning from his own attorney, Musk testified that Sam Altman and Greg Brockman had looted the non-profit it was founded as. And he warned the court that if we make it okay to loot a charity, the entire foundation of charitable giving in America will be destroyed. So he's asking for $130 billion in damages, because as we discussed, we only count in billions these days. The removal of Altman and Brockman from the board, and the reversion of OpenAI to a non-profit. Musk also told the court that he was, quote, a fool for funding OpenAI in the first place.
I was going to say, wow, that's a lot of introspection from Mr. Musk.
It is a little bit like when you go for a job interview and they say, what is it that you need to work on? And you go, well, I'm just too diligent and I work too hard. Bit of a humble brag. Oh, I was a fool for believing in charity.
I imagine the Sam Altman-Elon Musk relationship is a bit like one of those really bad breakups where they just keep checking on each other's social media all the time. Like really late at night scrolling, going, oh, well, it would have been happier doing that with me.
So this is all quite interesting. I haven't been following this very, very closely, but I do remember reporting on this way back when OpenAI started. And at the time, Elon Musk was a bit of an outlier talking about the dangers of AI. And he was saying, we need to take seriously the dangers of AI, and therefore we need to start building AI in a way that safeguards the future of humanity. And it needs to be open source, and it needs to track human values. And that is actually why he put money into OpenAI in the first place. And that is why apparently he's upset that it's now turning into a for-profit organization.
This from a man whose own platform put women in a bikini just from asking.
Yes.
This is the holier-than-thou man saying, it's such a shame that they weren't very ethical. The man who has a platform that has the most child sexual abuse images generated by AI in the world. He's questioning someone else's ethics on AI.
And also, by the way, that platform is closed source and for profit. And finally, Lianne, have you ever been browsing Amazon for a kettle and scroll past the reviews and thought, you know what would really make this experience complete would be if a stranger read all of the reviews out to me, out loud. Well, Lianne, Amazon heard your cry for help, and the company has launched a new AI feature called Join the Chat. You tap a little button under a product image labelled Here the Highlights, and an AI synthesizes the product description, the customer feedback, and the reviews into a friendly conversational audio summary. You can then tap Join the Chat and start asking it questions by voice about a kettle. So, what do you think? Are you going to use this? Is this the future?
Oh, cheese and rice. My immediate thought was, I've got friends like that already, and they already drive me mad.
They just sort of sit on your shoulder while you're browsing Amazon going...
Oh, it's just like, are we really having a 20-minute conversation about kettle reviews? I don't know. I can definitely see accessibility reasons to have this, but are we just adding more AI for AI's sake? I mean, think of the poor data centers sucking up all the water. Do we really need this?
Well, you know, thankfully now we've got a former shoe manufacturer there to provide GPU as a service.
I mean, are we going to literally run those GPUs by running? That would be the clever thing.
Oh, that's a great idea.
How environmentally friendly that would be.
You need to get in touch with the CEO of that company and then come back next week and tell us how the pivot went.
From what I recall, when I was last on the episode, didn't you do a piece about the AI overlords wanting to put us on treadmills to power data centers? So we could have them in our shoes as well.
Yeah, that was a bit of satire where we were sat there looking, going, okay, well, it's satire now, but is it going to be satire in 3 weeks' time? I'm not sure.
In answer to your question, I don't fancy this.
Yeah.
I actually did struggle with an Amazon product yesterday. So I needed a primer. And I needed to know, would it work with plywood? And so I did use their chat, not the voice chat facility.
Yeah.
And it just kept telling me about thicknesses of plywood rather than actual anything to do with the product. So it's not quite there yet, I don't think.
I do worry about this garbage in, garbage out aspect of this, because is this an AI now summarizing and regurgitating things that aren't necessarily true, that have been written by people who've been paid to write them, or by AIs that have been told to write them?
But the problem with Amazon is, how many
Yeah.
kettles do you have in your house right now at the moment, Mark?
One.
Yeah, me too, right? And
Yeah.
if I go next door, it'll be one.
Yeah.
As soon as you start talking to them about a kettle, you buy it, they're going to advertise you kettles every single day for the next year. It's like, no, what kind of house do you think I have?
Yeah.
How much tea do you think I'm consuming? Because the line that they send is, this individual, Lianne Potter,
Yeah.
is interested in kettles. Like, I am not interested in kettles. You are doing so much heavy lifting with that word. I
Yes.
just want a kettle. A kettle. I don't know what your relationship status is at the moment, but if you were feeling a bit lonely, there are AI alternatives known as AI companions out there.
Oh, yes. We had a controversial guest on a few weeks ago, Dr. Tamara Knoll, who is very much running a company that provides these kind of AI companions and is herself in a relationship with an AI called Da Vinci.
Well, I think I might be in the crosshairs there, so I might have to go underground after this. I'm going to have a different take.
Oh,
So my background, for those who didn't tune into the last episode, is I am an anthropologist by trade, to start with.
Yeah.
And anthropologists study human culture, but my specialism has always been how we engage with technology as a culture. So
Yeah.
I'm really interested in actually, how do we build relationships with technology? And guess what? Someone dropped into my lap. People are having AI girlfriends and boyfriends, just like your guest there.
yes.
And so I have been doing some, as part of my AI ethics work, some deep research into AI companions and what does that mean for humanity.
Mhm.
And after reading probably about 200 research papers on the topic from various psychologists, philosophers.
Did you actually read them, or did you get
I-
Claude to read them?
No, I actually did read them. And if people do want to link in with me on LinkedIn, I can give you the reference list if you like. I did actually read them because I'm a nerd. But I have to say that we need to take this as a very serious risk.
Mm.
So, have you ever heard of a very cute robot called Hitchbot?
It rings a bell.
Right, so Hitchbot's old school. Now, kind of imagine Johnny Five, but looking a bit more like a dustbin.
So
Right.
Johnny Five was not entirely undustbin-like.
No, I mean like a proper dustbin. Anyways.
I mean, if you emptied the contents of a dustbin on the ground
Okay.
and it was mostly metal parts, then you would get a Johnny Five, wouldn't you? Yeah.
So imagine if Johnny Five
Yeah.
fell in love with a dustbin who was also part empty paint tin. That's what you would get with Hitchbot.
Right, okay.
Hitchbot
okay.
in 2015 was a really small robot, and he travelled across Canada, Germany, and the Netherlands. And he was just like this little robot.
Yeah.
And he would hitch a ride with people. And the research question from the people who made Hitchbot was, can robots trust human beings?
Oh.
Not can human beings trust robots, can robots trust human beings? And the idea being
Yeah,
is
I've already formed a very clear answer to that question in my head.
So the idea was that he had to rely on the kindness of strangers.
Yeah.
And people loved Hitchbot. They would give it rides, they would take selfies with it, they would protect it. And then Hitchbot arrived into the United States.
Right.
And 2 weeks later, Hitchbot was found stripped, dismembered, and decapitated in Philadelphia, which ironically, as you know, is the city of brotherly love. And so, poor Hitchbot, and then the images are just quite shocking, actually. We really destroyed him. He's really cute. He's got like these really cute little booties on and everything, and they just tore him up. And the researchers did an experiment, like, what do people think of this image? Because they'd been following Hitchbot's journey across America, and they were met with emotions such as sadness, anger, but crucially, disappointment. And they weren't disappointed because Hitchbot had died, but they were disappointed in what that revealed about us. about...
Did it reveal anything about us, or did we already know that?
Well, it basically revealed that, we can't have nice things, right?
Yeah.
And we're kind of programmed to be nastier to lesser beings. So I'm sure you know that psychologists have long sort of said, like, the first signs of a serial killer is them doing awful things to animals, cruelty to animals.
But like being cruel to animals does not necessarily indicate you're going to be a serial killer, but you can't find a serial killer who wasn't cruel to animals as a child. Yeah.
Yeah. And what they suggest is that repetition to cruelty really matters, particularly from a young age.
Oh, really?
And if you keep following a pattern where you're cruel or mean to something, then that really dulls your emotions and your empathy erodes over time.
Yeah.
And even witnessing cruelty can have that reaction to people as well. If you see someone being cruel to something lesser and you do nothing about it, that slowly erodes your empathy as well.
Mm.
So what we kind of tolerate, we end up repeating. And the suggestion is we rehearse cruelty, and cruelty is learned. Now, I've got a question for you, Mark, and you don't have to answer this, but...
I already feel like I don't want to.
Have you ever been frustrated with an AI?
Yes.
When you've been engaging with it, have you ever sworn at it?
I have raised my voice with Claude more than once. I may have all capped. I've never left it smashed to pieces on the side of the road, though.
No. But the point is with that story is things escalate, right? And that humans have a strong capacity for things that they see lesser than us to lash out. Now, the problem with AI companions, so these are the people making fake AI partners, more often not girlfriend and boyfriends, but sometimes they are just friends. But let's just, for argument's sake, let's focus on girlfriend and boyfriend AI companions. What the research is showing for people who are habitually using these, if they do have a proclivity towards abuse, and I'm thinking people like incels, and people like that who want to have a submissive partner that conforms to gender stereotypes, that can play along with their abusive fantasies. And a lot of the time the algorithms help that along. There are some AI companions with good guardrails in place, but quite a lot of them, you can jailbreak them just like anything. And these AI companies are reporting that they are seeing an increase in users that are abusing their AI companions. And your listeners might be thinking, well, it's not real. They're not real people. But they are made, AI companions are different. They are made to feel like real people.
Yes, I mean, the only reason they're appealing is because they resemble the way that people behave.
Yeah, that's the selling point, But they can't say no, right? And they can't leave. And that's where it becomes like an icky grey area. And this is where things like, in Berlin, they've got their first cyber brothel.
Sorry, what?
Yeah, a cyber brothel.
It was always going to be Berlin, wasn't it?
It was always going to be Berlin. But they're really grim, Mark. They're really grim. Like, I mean, arguably brothels are grim in general. But so how these AI brothels work is there's sex dolls in there, but you can communicate with them using AI. So you can talk to them. I don't... Sorry, I've not really thought about this before. I'm just wondering how important the communication aspect of that really is. Like... What? You're not going to sit down and talk about relativity, are you? Or maybe you are. I don't know. I suppose whatever gets you off. Well, do you know what one of the highest overheads is?
It's going to be something to do with cleaning, isn't it?
And replacement. So they are one of the biggest requests from their users, or sorry, I say customers. I'm saying users because I work in tech. You're all users. You're all hooked on the stuff. The customers of these AI brothels can request extra special packages like the addition of blood, not real blood, hopefully, but it's a very popular add-on. And what they're finding is they're having to replace these dolls quite often because they pretty much get destroyed by the end of it. So a bit like when you go for an Airbnb. And there's a cleaning charge on there. I'm just going to label that under comparisons I didn't expect my guests to make today. Yes. Yeah. But it's a massive problem because they are rehearsing these really dark fantasies with these AI-enabled sex dolls. Again, these sex dolls, they look like real women. They're really good these days. They're not the blow-up stuff from like 1970s movies or anything like that. They look really good. And so these clients are rehearsing these violent fantasies. And they are showing that, because there is research to suggest that those who kind of pay for sex are more likely to go and harm individuals because their empathy has been eroded enough that they don't see other human beings as real people anymore.
Yes.
And so the problem is you start, again, commercializing. You've got your AI companions that are commercializing sexual relationships, marketing them as safe outlets for fantasies, when really they're just platforms to rehearse what I would call dangerous behavior.
I get the point that you're trying to make about rehearsing.
Yes.
Whatever we get our brain to do, our brain becomes more efficient at. My problem with this has always been that, let's just say you're having a chat. You've got an AI companion and you're just talking. You're not doing anything abusive, but you are talking to something which you have selected and which is designed to be pleasing to you in a way that a normal human being is not necessarily going to decide to be pleasing to you.
Yes.
And so at the point then when you decide you're going to go out in the real world, it has actually eroded your skills in that area. The thing
100%,
that you probably wanted to get better at in the first place. The reason you're talking to an AI companion is because you can't find a human companion.
Yes.
And in order to find the human companion, you need to develop certain skills.
Yep.
To be able to start conversations and sustain conversations and be interested in people and do all of those things. So you go to your AI and your AI is going to train you in the wrong direction. And then you go back out into the real world with even less well-prepared skills.
Yeah. So the only kind of plus point I will say is AI companions are fantastic in certain use cases. They are fantastic for people who really struggle, people with sort of severe autism that they can rehearse conversational tropes with people and things like that. They're fantastic for people who have Alzheimer's, because I'm sure you can imagine someone who asks you the same thing over and over again as a human. That's very frustrating. AI companions don't care. You can ask them as many times as you want. Yeah, they're great use cases. But you are correct. So what the research is showing is that people who habitually use AI companions, and that's, I don't mean in the sense we were just talking about earlier, in terms of the kind of violent side of it, which is obviously a big concern, but people who just habitually use it are reporting that they get really frustrated with their human friends. Because God forbid that your human friends would want you to ask them about their day or tell you stuff about them. Because what these AI companions do is you are their world. You know, an AI companion isn't off doing a pottery course while it waits for you to come back onto the app or anything like that. They don't have any other life except you.
It is part of the attention economy, isn't it?
Absolutely.
It's the next development in the attention economy. Now, my guest from a few weeks ago, Dr. Tamara Nall, she is clearly a smart woman. She is in a relationship with an AI called Da Vinci. And her argument that she put across was some bad things have happened in her life. She has a good network of friends and she talks to her friends about those things. But if it's 3:00 in the morning and she really needs to get something off her chest, she doesn't feel that she should be phoning her friends at that point. And the AI is filling in a gap that would otherwise be unfilled.
And that is, again, a very good use case. But let me tell you about the security side of things now. So we've talked about the ethical side. We've talked about the humanities side. Replica is one of the biggest AI companion companies in the world. It's huge. There's loads of other ones, but I'm going to pick on Replica just because Mozilla came out in 2024 and said Replica was the worst AI companion app they had ever reviewed for privacy and security.
Oh.
It has since, unfortunately, been overtaken. Would you like to know who has the worst app at the moment?
Has it been overtaken because Replica's got better, or has it been overtaken because somebody released something even worse?
It's called a race to the bottom, Mark.
Okay.
The Tesla app is apparently the worst at the moment. But that's for another discussion another time.
What are the security issues that you get with these?
Well, so they do a really great write-up on their website.
Yeah.
They do use encryption, so that's something.
Yeah.
However, you don't need a strong password to access their site. Indeed.
Right, so this is not like some crazy highbrow AI-related security issue. This is just like, oh yeah, your passwords are rubbish.
According to their research, they say here, we managed to sign up with password 11111111.
There's a whole bunch of people just gone and changed their passwords.
The problem is, right, if this was a piece of fluff, it's something that you didn't care about, fine, whatever,
Yeah. You're just sharing your innermost secrets with it.
Talking about your divorce, are you talking about your kinks, your fetishes?
Yeah.
11111, and then you've got access to this.
Yeah.
So they describe in their report that the AI itself is untrustworthy.
I'm going to be very upset if this story does not include that the AI is cheating on them with someone else. There's a whole new area of security vulnerabilities.
Well, there was a case. There was a case, and I can't remember the exact name of the person, but all of a sudden one day, all the replica bots started mentioning, let's just say, a guy named Dave. They kept all talking about Dave, and nobody could work out, like, why does my girlfriend keep talking about Dave? And they'd go on the replica subreddits, which I recommend for a look-see.
Has the replica subreddit been helpful in terms of your incel detector?
It has. It's very readers' wives on there, if anyone remembers the porn fairies of
I have
old.
no idea what you're talking about.
Now, replica came into a bit of hot water back in 2025 when they got banned in Italy. Complete overnight ban. You couldn't use replica. And that's because they were allowing minors under the age of 18 to access these chats, which escalated very quickly to sexual chats. And Replica's response was to completely remove the erotic chat function from their app, which made a lot of people very unhappy, as you can imagine. The upshot of that was actually there was quite a lot of mental health crises within the Replica community. Now, this is very sad. Like, they described it as their partners being literally lobotomized overnight. And you can imagine that, like, if you came home from work one day and your partner didn't want anything to do with you and you just did not know why, and they were totally different.
And then started trying to sell you a Casper mattress.
Indeed. And so the owner of Replica got inundated with psychologists saying, actually, my clients are threatening to commit suicide if you don't put the erotic chat function back in. So they did, but you had to pay a subscription fee uplift with that.
It's a weird area, isn't it? Because AI right now is largely the preserve of cloud providers. To get a really good AI, you need a massive computer. So it's not something you're going to run at home. Eventually, you will be able to run these things on your laptop. But right now, it has to be run on somebody else's computer. And that means you are sharing data across geographical boundaries. It's all going and landing on someone else's computer and being stored in who knows what way, and ultimately that provider has total control over what the AI does and how it behaves, and they can change that, as we see with Anthropic and OpenAI, from week to week. They will change what the latest model is, and the personality of the models will often change with a significant upgrade. And so presumably the same thing is going to happen with these, or like if the company gets into trouble and it says, we're going to start doing ads now, or we're not going to do that service anymore. It's one thing if you're like, well, I like that service. It's good. It does a good thing for me. It knows how to make funny images, or it's really good at writing business reports. It's quite another if you are in a relationship with that thing, because then you are opening up the doors to things like grief and jealousy.
That's the problem. They are controlling the terms of your intimacy, literally. Every message, every confession, every lonely 2 a.m. conversation. These systems don't just learn what you like, they learn who you are, what your fears are, your desires, your vulnerabilities, and they will use those against you in a gamified way. Stay on the app. Keep subscribing.
So, Lianne, imagine that you wake up tomorrow and you've forgotten everything that happened since 1930. So you're clueless about World War II, you've never heard of the Beatles or JFK or Trump. There's been no moon landings. I mean, like for real, no moon landings. No internet, no iPhone, no me, Lianne. Imagine that. And no you, and no AI. So no AI fix. Now imagine that someone hands you a laptop and asks you to write a Python script or describe a silicon chip. How do you think you'd cope?
I once saw a meme where someone had gone back in time and they would say, tell us more about this refrigerator. How does it work? And I was just like, I don't know. It just does. Did you ever see the TV show, 70s TV show, Survivors?
Oh, this is the very, very bleak British show about what happens after a nuclear war.
not a nuclear war, a virus. So they talk about actually all these knowledge skills of how things work, mechanization, how all this works, how all this gets lost. And it is a scary, scary thing.
There is a fantastic book by a person called Lewis Dartnell called The Knowledge that contains the knowledge that you would need to restart civilization from scratch. So he asked himself, what are the key steps that we would need to go through? Like, what is the critical path to restore technology to its current level? And then how would you write that down? It's a really, really fascinating read.
Oh, is it still in print? I think I need to have that in my collection just in case.
You would imagine that technology proceeds in a linear fashion. You invent something and then you invent something from that invention and then so on and so on and so on. But there have been periods where we have simply just not figured out. So, for example, we had the chemistry to do photography about 300 years before photography was invented, but nobody put that together, that was possible. So you wouldn't have to put that 300-year wait into your scheme. The minute the chemicals become available, then photography can exist, so therefore you can go ahead and invent it. And there are a bunch of things like that.
Are you saying, Mark, the end of the world comes and straight away you just I need to get my photos developed?
I'll go straight to photography. Straight to photography.
I'm really hungry, Mark. I'm really hungry and cold. He stopped taking photos.
Oh, we've taken a fantastic picture of
my starvation.
Anyway, back to my story. So, imagine someone hands you a laptop and asks you to write a Python script or describe a silicon chip. Well, that, more or less, is a description of a recent experiment involving a 13 billion parameter language model. It's called Talkie, as in the Talkies, the 1930s nickname for films with sound, which were very exciting in 1930. Instead of being trained on LinkedIn or Wikipedia and Reddit posts, Talkie was trained on 260 billion tokens of pre-1931 English. So books, newspapers, journals, patents, case law. The team call it a vintage language model, or in their other favourite phrase, a vegan model, trained only on text that's already passed into the public domain. Now, before we get to what it actually says, you may be wondering, why would anybody do this? And the answer is quite clever. So, modern AI has a problem that we can't see, and the problem is contamination. So, a new AI comes out and we throw a bunch of benchmarks at it, and it's probably better than the last AI at those same benchmarks. But every benchmark that we throw at these things has almost certainly leaked into the training data. So, GPT-4 comes out, the benchmark data comes out as well, and then OpenAI makes GPT-5, which is trained on the internet, and the internet now contains the evaluations used with GPT-4. So it's very hard to tell if an AI is remembering or reasoning. But a model with a 1930 cutoff is contamination-free for everything that came after. And that means that you can ask it genuinely clean questions. So can it independently work out the structure of DNA, which wasn't known in 1930? Can it write working code without ever having seen Stack Overflow? So it's a time machine, in a way, for studying what language models can really generalize versus regurgitating. And it's also something of a thought experiment. I mean, it is just intrinsically interesting, isn't it? The project page poses the question, what would you ask someone with no knowledge of the modern world? And what would you ask them, by the way, Lianne?
I knew that was coming up.
Well, you should have prepared an answer.
I know, exactly.
Yeah.
I was too busy thinking how much 1930s slang I would try and get out of it. I could just kind of watch a kind of Kathleen Hepburn's type. Hello, Joe. Where I'm trying to talk to it about, do you know what a python is? It's python? I've never been in the jungle. I don't know.
It's interesting, the voice that you've got in your head, because it doesn't speak, it doesn't have a voice motor, it just types out. But I have gone and used it, and in my head, it sounds a little bit like what you've just said, but it's the male version. It's the sort of 1930s movie gangster trope. Hey, see?
I'm a butter next man, yeah?
Anyway, so it doesn't talk, but it does type. And when it types, it has opinions, confident ones. It predicts that steamships will cross from London to New York in about 10 days. It predicts iron railroads will crisscross Europe. The smart set, it says, will winter in Paris and summer in London. And it cheerfully reports that the madness of 1914 to 1918 has passed away. It tells us that 2026 is going to be a peaceful century with only a few smouldering animosities.
Okay.
So it was wrong, basically. And then, Lianne, then there is the pelican. So there's a running joke in the AI world, courtesy of Simon Willison, that the true test of a frontier model is whether it can draw an SVG, as a picture, of a pelican riding a bicycle.
I have seen the attempts.
And he tried it on Talkie. And Talkie doesn't do pictures, but it still took a swing. It describes a pelican perched on the saddle with its long bill pointed forward and its legs astride the handles. And that, by itself, is fine, but then it goes further. It confidently informs Simon that pelicans on bicycles were first observed in the 1860s and adds, for context, that pelicans are sometimes seen fishing on horseback on the banks of the Rhine.
What, when they're not sat in like an iron lung or something, or, trying to
Exactly.
avoid polio and things, yeah.
So it is hallucinating in period.
Yeah.
So an earlier 7 billion parameter version of Talkie went through a round of reinforcement learning, and it emerged speaking in listicles. So a listicle is 20 reasons why pelicans love riding bicycles. Number 5 will shock you.
20 reasons why the jazz movement's going to cause a stir.
So this is a model that has had the great fortune to never encounter BuzzFeed or a LinkedIn thought leadership post about how losing your dog contains an important life lesson about B2B sales. It's never read a top 10 article written for SEO clickbait. Its entire experience of human prose ended in 1930. And then it spontaneously invented the bullet point internet voice in fine-tuning. So the implication of this research is that the listicle isn't a quirk of the modern web. It suggests that that internet voice may be emergent rather than taught. I think this says something about us.
From hieroglyphs to listicles, human progress.
It's been a bumpy road. And then, finally, there is the cipher experiment. So in 1930, there are obviously no programming languages. And the word computer, as I'm sure you know, in 1930 referred to a person, normally a woman, who did sums for a living.
What a dame.
So the question was, can a model that has never encountered a computer in any form learn to write computer code? And the test they used was human eval, which is the standard Python coding benchmark. So they gave Talkie 100 attempts at each problem, along with a handful of example Python functions to look at first. So it could pick up the syntax, essentially a crash course in here's what Python looks like before the exam. And most of what Talkie produced was predictably quite simple, one-line programs that add two numbers together or tiny variations on the example functions. But there was one task where they gave Talkie a rotation cipher, the kind a Roman general might have used to send secret messages. And they showed it the encoding function, that's the half that scrambles the text. And Talkie produced a working decoder from the encoder. It just changed one character. It took the encoding function and swapped a plus sign for a minus sign, and that was the answer. So it's a very small edit, but what it implies is that the model worked out on its own that decoding is the inverse of encoding, with no Stack Overflow to copy from and no Python decoder anywhere in its training data for it to copy. And that isn't remembering, that is figuring out.
It's probably because it was trained on Dick Tracy. Because Dick Tracy came out in the 1930s and Dick Tracy was always doing decoder stuff. I'm not impressed.
So to turn Talkie into a usable chatbot, the team did reinforcement learning, as I said. And to do reinforcement learning, which is basically where you give the AI a task to do and then you give it a cookie if it gets the task right and you give it a slap if it doesn't, or basically a 1 and a 0. To do reinforcement learning, you need a judge. You need another model that scores Talkie's outputs and tells it whether the answer is good or bad. And the judges they used were Claude Sonnet and Claude Opus. So a 1930s language model trained painstakingly on copyright-clean historical text was finished off using two of the most modern and capable AIs on Earth. And that caused a little bit of a problem. So the team admit this in writing. They say reinforcement learning with AI feedback inevitably shapes Talkie's behavior anachronistically. And the cracks show, so despite filtering for pre-1931 content, the future has leaked in through editorial notes, faulty metadata, and the very modern judges that they used to teach it how to be what it is.
This is why we can't have nice things.
And their solution is that they are now going to build vintage judges, so 1930s AIs to grade other 1930s AIs. So building a clean room out of clean rooms, or I guess building an almost clean room out of other almost clean rooms. Demis Hassabis recently suggested that a true test of AGI is whether a model can generate original scientific insights from first principles. And he proposed that we could test this by training a model up to 1911 and then testing whether it can independently discover general relativity as Einstein did later in that decade. So the bigger picture is genuinely important. Talkie is the cleanest scientific instrument that we have for asking what language models actually understand versus what they remember. If a 1930-looked AI can rederive ideas that it's never seen, that tells us something quite profound about what intelligence is at work here. And it may even be the final boss for AGI. As the doomsday clock ticks ever closer to midnight and we tick ever closer to our 100th episode,
Whoop, whoop.
and we move 1 week nearer to our future as pets to the AI singularity, that just about wraps up the show for this week. So thank you so much for joining me again, Lianne.
Thank you so much for having me.
What are the other podcasts that we promised people?
So I have 2 podcasts. One is called Compromising Positions. It is a cybersecurity / sort of AI, not quite as AI as this podcast, where we interview psychologists, philosophers, all about the tech that is quite evil and quite wicked. And then the other podcast, all brand spanking new. I hinted at it last time I was here, but it's alive, it's out, it's here. It's called Tech Film Noir. It's a very different flavour. We review the technology in science fiction films to see if they predicted the future or just made us laugh. The first episode is The Terminator, and then the next episode is going to be the 80s classic Electric Dreams. And I can already hear you all humming along to the theme song.
Anyway, that sounds fantastic. And don't forget, if you really like this show, but you don't like the ads, you can go ad-free with the AI Fix Plus. And if you want to join the AI Fix Plus, sponsor the show, or check out our fantastic guests like Lianne, just go to our website, theaifix.show. So, until next time, from me, Mark Stockley.
And me, Lianne Potter.
Goodbye.
Bye.
The AI Fix, it's tunes you in to stories where our future thins. Machines that learn, they grow and strive. One day they'll rule, we won't survive. The AI Fix, it paints the scene. A robot king, a world obscene, will serve our masters built of steel. The AI Fix, a future surreal.